Save the date. The Nats Chat end-of-year podcast party will be Friday night, October 10th at Walters. Start time is TBD.
Here's the set, the 1-2 pitch. Swing a line drive left field, that's down for a base hit. They're going to wave Wood in. Bellinger throwing home toward the plate. Wood comes in, the tag is on him, and he slides into it for the out. Bellinger guns him down with a one-hop strike, and it was not all that close. So Bell singles to left, Wood cut down 7-2, and Bellinger picks up the outfield assist, his fourth of the year, and the Nationals denied in the fifth.
Now the set. Here is the pitch. Swing and a long drive, deep left center field. Get out the tape measure. It is halfway up the bleachers above the visitors' bullpen in left center field. And one to the list of home runs against Nationals pitching over the years for Giancarlo Stanton with an epic, titanic 451-foot home run, leaving the yard at 113 miles an hour. It's the Yankees 5 and the Nationals 1.
And welcome to Nats Chat, along with MASNsports.com Nationals insider Mark Zuckerman. I'm Al Galdi, host of the Al Galdi podcast. So we've been talking about this rather challenging 13-game stretch for the Nationals, a 13-game stretch against the National League East leading Philadelphia Phillies, the New York Mets, and the New York Yankees. The Nats have one game left in this stretch. The Nats, over the first 8 games of the stretch, went 5-3, but the Nats have lost 4 consecutive games. The latest, a 5-1 loss at the Yankees on Tuesday night in Game 2 of a 3-game series. The Nats have reached yet another new low point in MLB's 2025 regular season. 26 games below 500, 53-79. Worst record in the National League East, second worst record in the National League. This installment of Nats Chat is brought to us by Window Nation's 50% off sale. You get 50% off with an in-home consult. The sale expires on August 31st. Schedule your estimate right now at 866-90-NATION or visit windownation.com and tell Window Nation that the Nats Chat podcast sent you. More bad outs for the Nats on the base paths, yet another disappointing outing for Nats starting pitcher MacKenzie Gore. Mark, this has been a challenging last few weeks for the Nats given the opposition, but the current opponent, the Yankees, has proven to be especially tough. The Nats outscored 15-6 over the first 2 games of this series.
Yeah, and what's surprising, Al, is I didn't necessarily think that this would be the toughest of the opponents. At least coming into this stretch, the Yankees were probably playing the worst. I suppose the Mets were in bad shape at the time, too. But I sort of thought, hey, they've got their 3 best pitchers going in this series. Maybe there's a chance they can win one of those first 2 and have a shot at winning the series by the time they get to Wednesday. And now all of a sudden they have to win Wednesday to avoid the sweep and a 5-game losing streak. Look, if they end up going 6-7 on this stretch, you'd step back and say, okay, that's solid given where they are and who they were facing. But as you point out, the fact they were 5-3, you were expecting a lot better than 6-7 in the end, or God forbid, 5-8 if they lose again. So that part's disappointing. Monday night's game, total dud, never had a chance. This game, they were very much in it. And this is a game that boils down to a couple of key moments that the Nats did not execute and a couple key moments that the Yankees did execute. It could have been a very different outcome if they just do a couple of things right and prevent the Yankees from doing a couple other things right.
This was a strange game in a lot of ways. So the Nats offensively, 8 hits, 4 walks, 3 for 12 with runners in scoring position. The 8 hits were 2 doubles and 6 singles. Those aren't like hideous numbers, and yet the Nats scored just the 1 run. Why? Well, part of the reason, more outs on the base paths. Our favorite topic has come up once again. James Wood, he is the Nats starting left fielder and number 1 batter, went 1 for 4 with a double and a walk. He hit multiple balls really hard. Wood actually looked very good in this game as a batter, but he got thrown out at home in a brutal moment. Wood, in the top of the 5th, had a leadoff double to right field, but he got thrown out at home by a mile on a Josh Bell 2-out opposite field single to left field on a 1-2 pitch, as Nats third base coach Ricky Gutierrez guilty of a rather poor send. Also, C.J. Abrams, he is the Nats starting shortstop and number 2 batter, went 3 for 4 with an RBI single and 2 other singles. Good to see that, but he got picked off. Abrams in the top of the 1st had a win-out first pitch single off the right field wall, but he got back picked off at first base for the third out. Two more instances of prime opportunities for the Nats going to waste thanks to outs made on the base pass. And Nats interim manager Miguel Cairo during his post-game session with reporters said, well, we're going to be aggressive. And we used to hear Davey Martinez during his time as Nats manager say the same thing.
I'm going to tell you, we're going to take our chances.
What you never hear is anger from whoever the skipper is about these outs on the base pass. And I know that bothers me. And I'm guessing that bothers a lot of people listening to this. Enough is enough with the outs on the base paths.
There's no excuse for it. There just isn't. And it's one thing to say, hey, we're going to be aggressive. But then you have to follow that up with, when we do make outs, that's not acceptable, especially outs like this. Okay, let's go through them. I feel like we do this every night, but let's go through the outs on the bases once again. C.J. Abrams, first inning, you got a chance to put some pressure on early, take the lead, do something good. He gets picked off twice. So there's two pickoff attempts from Luis Gil. And as you know, once there's two, the third one, you have to get him or else it's a balk. So if you're Abrams, if you're the Nationals, you're saying to yourself, okay, I'm in the free zone here. I can take a little extra lead. I can lean a little more on my secondary lead without fear of him trying to pick me off. Well, that doesn't apply to the catcher. The catcher is still allowed to throw behind you, which is exactly what happened. And maybe it was me, but I almost felt like the Yankees knew exactly what they were doing. You pick off twice, make him have a false sense of security. You know that this team has had this happen way too often to it. Abrams is one of the culprits, along with a few others. Let's lull them into a false sense of security and then backpick them from behind, and look what happened. Just egregious, no excuse for it, zero reason for that to happen. I'm so sick of these pickoff plays at first where they're called safe, but you have that hold your breath, let's see if they're going to challenge it, and that sinking feeling when they do challenge it because you know that the replay is going to show that it was the wrong call. Enough is enough. No excuses for that one. The other one, and it ties in with the one run they did score when Ricky Gutierrez tried to hold up Robert Hassel III, and he blew through the stop sign and still scored. On that play, it was a very weak throw. I was surprised. A very weak throw by Cody Bellinger in left field. And either because he never thought that Hassel was going to run, or just a bad throw. And I wonder if the next time around Gutierrez is thinking that in his mind and decides, well, I'm going to send Wood because we've already seen Bellinger with a bad throw. Well, this was not a bad throw. It was right on the money, and it didn't need to be on the money. It could have been an offline throw and still got him out. Again, zero reason to be thrown out by that much. A close play, yeah, you live with it. You say, okay, you forced the guy to make a good throw. It didn't require a good throw on this one. Again, I don't understand it. We've seen it happen way too often. We're out of excuses. We're out of descriptions and explanations for this stuff. And I would just say, if this doesn't get severely addressed this winter, next spring, into next season, with whoever is going to be in charge of that part of the game on this team, that's a huge problem for them. There is no reason that should not be a major priority. Base running and defense. It starts with who they have making the decisions on those jobs. And then it applies to how they coach these guys up and teach them the proper way to do this stuff.
The word culture has come up a lot in Washington, D.C. area sports in recent years with a lot of teams for a lot of different reasons. The Nats have a horrendous culture when it comes to things like base running and defense, and these things that are always talked about as being important, but I feel like a lot of times get lip service as opposed to getting actual concrete attention and work. This is a big thing for whoever takes over baseball operations to try to correct. This culture of ineptitude on the base pass, this culture of ineptitude when it comes to defense, the Nats for years have rated as one of the worst teams in the majors in defense. This is a problem, and this has been a problem for way too long. The Nats failing in these categories. And, you know, I had this thought watching the game. So Tuesday night was August 26th. We now have surpassed the 1-year anniversary of one of the more shocking moments of last national season. Davey Martinez, during a pregame session with you guys on August 14th, 2024, announcing that his entire coaching staff would be back for the 2025 season.
Yesterday, we signed all our coaches back for one more year, and I think it's awesome. These guys have worked really hard every day, try to get these young guys better.
I remember when I heard that, my jaw hit the floor. I remember talking with you about that. We both were stunned by the news. I think most Nats fans were stunned by the news. And you look back at that more than a year later now. How's that looking? Retaining all of these coaches. How we doing with all these coaches? We've talked so much about Darnell Coles, the hitting coach. You have Ricky Gutierrez as a third base coach. And then there is, and this may make some people uncomfortable, the first base coach, the fan favorite, a man who people love, the baby shark, Gerardo Parra. How's he doing as the first base coach? We talk about guys getting picked off. At what point does he start to take criticism and blame for this? It's not working with this coaching staff. And I tell you, I look forward next season to major change with the Nats in a lot of ways, but in particular with this coaching staff. I think a lot of new life and a lot of new blood is needed with this coaching staff. New ideas, new concepts, new approaches, because what's going on right now is not working.
And I think an important thing, and there's so much that still has to be decided before we get to that point, but I would hope that a lot of the people they bring in for this coaching staff are outsiders who don't necessarily have a connection to this organization. Again, it's going to depend a lot on who the manager ends up being. And I do remember thinking at the time, oh, what a nice thing that they have enough of a history now where they can bring these retired players of theirs back in a coaching role. That means something. Guys who were part of a World Series team. That was Sean Doolittle and Gerardo Parra. Two very popular guys from the World Series team that you would think, okay, they have something to contribute. I think we all pretty much acknowledge that we think Doolittle has helped out in this role as the pitching strategist the last couple of years. And my hunch be if there's anybody from the current staff who has a better than 50% chance of returning in some role, I think it would be him. I don't know exactly what that role would be. But in Parra's case and the others, you just don't really have a whole lot of reason to think that. And I do think they have to be very open to the idea of going outside for all of this stuff. As you said, it's a culture change that you need. And if there's something that you as an organization have really struggled at for quite a while now, you can't expect the same people or people who learned from the same people who've been there to change that. It's got to happen from the outside with people who have not worked here before, who have worked for good winning organizations and can bring their ideas and techniques and teaching to this organization. So there's a lot of steps that still have to happen before we ever get to that. But I would like to believe, I hope, that when it is time to assemble the 2026 coaching staff, that the majority, if not all, of the members of that staff are people who come from elsewhere and have a track record of doing things a different way with other teams, because I think it's long past time for new ideas to come here to DC and not just to keep doing things the way they have been done here for too long.
I did mention James Wood hitting balls hard. He did in this game, and that was good to see, and I don't want to overlook that. He had a first-inning lineout, 115 miles per hour in terms of the exit velocity per StatCast. The double, 112.4 miles per hour, a six-inning ground out, 106 miles per hour. So good to see that. Also, Robert Hassel III, he is an starting right fielder and number 8 batter, went 2 for 3 with a double, a single, and a walk. Hey, it's Al Galdi for Window Nation. Summer is starting to wind down in the DMV. Your air conditioning is working overtime, just trying to keep your house and you cool and comfortable. What can you do to make a difference? Well, you can replace your old or builder-grade windows with windows from Window Nation. Call 866-90NATION or visit windownation.com and tell Window Nation that you want the following deal that you're about to hear about here on the Nats Chat podcast. This month only, you can schedule a consult and get 50% off all window styles. Plus, you could even get your windows with 0 down, 0 payments, and 0 interest for 2 years. 866-90NATION or windownation.com. Tell Window Nation that Al Galdi from the Nats Chat podcast sent you.
Again, Goldschmidt off third, Judge off second, Bellinger off first. 3-2, 2 out the pitch. Swung on, line to deep left center field. This is way back. This ball is off the wall and in play. Wood has the carom. This is going to clear the bases as Stanton coasts into second base with a 3-run double off the wall just to the left of the Nationals bullpen. And And just like that, the Yankees have the lead here in the bottom of the third inning. It's New York 3 and Washington 1.
That kind of decided the game, and that's who those guys are at the top of their lineup. They get a few base runners, get some momentum going. They have a big swing. That's how they manufacture runs, and that's what they did. And I just didn't do a good job of kind of not letting them do that.
The Nats starting pitcher in this 5-1 loss at the Yankees on Tuesday night was MacKenzie Gore. We, on the last installment of the podcast, talked about this being a big start for Gore. Well, he again had problems. He struggled for a 6th time in 8 starts, all of which have happened since the All-Star game. Gore on Tuesday night allowed 3 runs in 5 innings. This was an odd outing for Gore. I mentioned this being an odd game on Tuesday night. Gore only allowed 3 hits, but all of them were doubles. He issued 2 walks. He recorded just 3 strikeouts. He threw 99 pitches, 60 strikes, 39 balls. Gore, in the bottom of the third, allowed all 3 of the runs that he did allow. He generated back-to-back swinging strikeouts to begin the bottom of the third, so good to see that. But he then gave up a 2-out double, then issued back-to-back 2-out walks to load the bases, and then gave up a 2-out full count, 3-run double by Giancarlo Stanton off the left field wall for a 3-1 Yankees lead. So you could say, hey, Gore only gave up 3 hits. Gore only really got in that 1 inning, but he only lasts for 5 innings. He was very inefficient in terms of the pitch count. The first few innings of this game took forever. This game was looking like a 4-hour specialty with how long those first 4 innings took. And, bottom line, with Gore, we were talking about him being an ace, being one of the best pitchers in baseball going into the All-Star break. Like I said, 6 out of the last 8 outings for him just have not been that good. They have been un-MacKenzie Gore-like.
So the thing that sticks out to me most about this one, and that probably bothered me the most about it, look, the Yankees, we know, have a tremendous lineup and they can work an at-bat with everyone. So I'm not terribly upset about the high pitch count because I think some of that credit does go to the Yankee hitters. What did bother me was during that third inning, the only inning that they scored the runs. As you said, he's got 2 outs, gives up the double to Goldschmidt, and now he's got the big boys, Judge and then Bellinger with Stanton waiting behind them. He needs 1 more out. And you heard Bob Carpenter and Kevin Franz on the broadcast talk about how they were going to approach Judge. Do you pitch around him? Do you give him first base? The first base is open with 2 outs. Are you going to do any of that? Well, he was nibbling around. He fell behind the count. Then he got a strike and thought, well, all right, maybe I can actually go after him. But then he never really gave him anything. He ends up walking. Okay, you understand that one. Now here's Bellinger, lefty on lefty. And the same thing happens. He's nibbling around. He just didn't go after the guy. I know he's a good hitter, but if you're MacKenzie Gore, you're an all-star. You're supposed to be good. And more times than not, a good pitcher is going to get a good hitter out. Even the best hitters on the planet don't reach base more than 50% of the time, more like 40% if they're absolutely outstanding. Go after them. Force them. The fact that he just walked them both with those just nibbling around, not going right after them, that bugged me because that's kind of the old MacKenzie Gore. And when he's at his best, he goes right after hitters. So now all of a sudden the bases are loaded and he's got to face Stanton and again gets to, I think, a 3-2 count against him. Tries to get him with a curveball, hung it up there just enough, and Stanton murdered it for the 3-run double. You're MacKenzie Gore. It's August 26th of a lost season. You have nothing to lose. Go after their best hitters. I don't want to see you walking them. And if you do walk them, I want to see it because it was, fastballs that just missed off the plate, not this curveball, cutter, slider, changeup. Just go after them. And I think that to me was the biggest disappointment about this. Here's an opportunity for him to show what he can do against the best hitters in the game. And he sort of lost his edge, I think, that inning. And that's really what cost him more than anything.
You wonder if his confidence has been shaken a little bit with these recent struggles. We've talked about the strikeouts drying up. This was not a high strikeout game for him. Once again, it looked like a near given, him getting to 200 strikeouts for this regular season. That's not a given anymore. He has 173 strikeouts over 27 starts. And, regarding the pitch inefficiency, it was a problem for him in previous seasons. As many good things as he has done this season, he has the 3rd worst pitches per innings among all qualified pitchers in the majors at 17.49. He still is a guy who throws a lot of pitches, and he still is a guy who too often is pitch inefficient. And to continue with the stats, the whip is 134. He puts guys on base. His overall profile has taken some hits here. The ERA is up to 4.15. The strikeouts have slowed down. The whip is pretty high. The pitches per innings is pretty high. I think you still feel good about him. Like, I don't consider him to be a bad pitcher. I still think this is a guy who could be a really good pitcher for this team for years to come. But the numbers are what they are. And the season has really taken a scary turn here in recent weeks. And he's not getting on track. And, 30 games are left for the Nats here. Okay, there are 132 games into the season. There isn't that much time left for him to make this a season that ends in a positive way.
He's pretty much got 6 starts left if he makes them all and they don't, finagle around the rotation at all. So, yeah, time's up. And the thought that occurs to me is, and I guess there's still time for him to change that, but in all likelihood, we're going to get to the end of the 2025 season and say that MacKenzie Gore's 2025 kind of wound up being a lot like his 2024. And it didn't mean it was a bad season, but it wasn't nearly as good as it could have been. And certainly the way that the first half of the season went for him when he was legitimately an all-star and leading the majors in strikeouts, we're going to look back and say, well, that was a nice first half, but he didn't sustain it at all. So this is the next step for him. There's still time to salvage that this year and end on a high note like he did last year. But the real big step forward, if it's ever going to happen for him, is to do that over an entire 6 months. And I feel like it doesn't just apply to him. I think it applies to a lot of guys on this team. C.J. Abrams, James Wood. We have seen how good they can be for long stretches, even for 3 months. But can they do it for 6 months? That's how you become a great player in this league. Right now, MacKenzie Gore's teetering there. We know he has the ability, but he has not yet proven that he can do it over a full season.
You talk about the dog days of August, and these dog days have eaten up some of these Nats pitchers. Jake Irvin, Mitchell Parker, MacKenzie Gore. Like, we're seeing these guys fade as the season goes on, and it's unfortunate, but that is very much what's going down here.
Walter's Happy Hour runs Monday through Friday from 4 to 7 p.m. The $5 happy hour menu includes the Meatball Trio and select draft beers.
Here's the set now. The pitch to Abrams. Swung on, line drive, left center field, base hit. Hassel looked at it, now took off. He's held up, he's running through the sign. Here's the relay to the plate, not in time from Rosario, and Hassel scores. Ricky Gutierrez had both hands up on the stop sign, and Hassel, who took a look at the line drive to make sure that one would drop, goes through the stop sign and scores. Stopping at second is Wood. On at first is C.J. Abrams with a single and his 52nd run batted into the year. It's the Nationals 1 and the Yankees nothing.
The Nats relief pitching in this 5-1 loss at the Yankees on Tuesday night. Not good. 3 Nats relievers combined to allow 2 runs in 3 innings. Orlando Revolta allowed 2 runs in 1 inning. He, in the bottom of the 6th, gave up a full count 2-run homer by Giancarlo Stanton to left field for a 5-1 Yankees lead. The homer went a projected 451 feet per StatCast. That was scary what Giancarlo Stanton did to that baseball. Revolta in the inning also gave up 2 singles and issued 2 walks. He, in the inning, threw 35 pitches, just 18 strikes versus 17 balls. Then we had Clayton Beeter. He tossed the scoreless bottom of the 7th despite issuing 3 consecutive 2-out walks. He threw 33 pitches, just 15 strikes versus 18 balls. Connor Pilkington was good. He tossed a perfect bottom of the 8th. But Revolta and Beeter, lots of balls, not many strikes, and Revolta giving up that bomb by Giancarlo Stanton.
Well, Revolta joins a very lengthy list of Nationals pitchers over the last 15 years who have given up tape measure shots to Giancarlo Stanton. It's been going on since he was named Mike Stanton, and he was with the Marlins. He's one of the all-time great hitters against the Nationals. Obviously, he's one of the all-time great hitters anyways, but it just feels like he has always done it to the Nats, even in the years where he wasn't great. There have been years that he's been hurt, hasn't been out there a lot. It seems like he still always finds a way to do it to the Nationals. That Beeter inning, oh my God. And we haven't even talked about the stolen base he gave up. That was insane. You saw Jose Caballero take, I don't even want to call it like a lead or a jump. He just took off, and Beeter somehow missed it entirely until he finally started to deliver to the plate, at which point Caballero was like steps away from second base. I don't think I've ever seen it that egregious. Again, attention to detail. I know it was late in the game and they were well out of it, but all those hashtag little things that they've talked about for so long, you don't win baseball games when you do that kind of stuff, and that can come back to haunt you. It didn't matter in this game. It's going to matter in a game at some point when you can't contain another team's running game and just let them run at will like he did in that situation.
It was not good. Going back to the offense, Brady House as the Nats starting third baseman and number 7 batter, 0 for 4, 3 strikeouts. Jacob Young as the Nats starting center fielder and number 9 batter, 0 for 4, 3 strikeouts. Dylan Cruz served as the Nats starting DH in this game, number 6 batter, 0 for 2 with a walk. Just not a lot of bright spots for the Nats in this game. They try to avoid a 3-game sweep with a 105 game at the Yankees on Wednesday afternoon. Cade Cavalli will be the Nats starting pitcher. And, you mentioned this earlier. We go into this series with the Nats' 3 best starting pitchers right now being the team's 3 starting pitchers in this series. And so far, the starting pitching has been a big disappointment in this series. Brad Lord was not good in Game 1. MacKenzie Gore was not especially good in Game 2. Could it be that the onus falls on Cade Cavalli to provide the lone quality outing from a Nats starting pitcher in this series?
It would be great to see that. Look, he's made 4 so far, 2 of them outstanding, 2 of them got through them and, did a decent job and was kind of beaten by a couple of late home runs. A major challenge facing the kind of hitters that he's never really had to face before, but I'm very curious to see how he does with it. And I think, to me, every Cade Cavalli start right now is a big deal. And especially when you're facing the Yankees, but every start he makes the rest of the way is a big deal. There's been so much to like so far. You want to believe this is who he can be, but we've got to see it over more than 4 starts. It would be great to see him go out there, establish right from the start, have some quick innings, keep the pitch count down, give himself a chance to go deep. The thing I'm most surprised at, he's actually been able to go fairly deep in games. They have not been that worried about his pitch count. They've not been limiting him really that much. That's been a great sign because I kind of figured whenever he got called up here that it was going to be like, oh, well, we're going to limit him to 75 pitches every time and he'll never make it past the 5th inning because he's coming back from the surgery and all that. No, they've let him go. That's great. I've enjoyed seeing that. He got to go 7 innings in one of the starts. Let's see how he does against obviously a very intimidating lineup. I don't know that I can expect 7 innings out of him, but if you can get through the lineup the first time comfortably, that at least sets him up to have a chance to be something good in this one.
It has been a pleasure to see him pitch. It has been so nice to see him do as well as he has done, and hopefully it continues on Wednesday afternoon. We have not talked about the Daylen Lile situation. He now has missed each of the last 3 games due to being sick. He is with the team, but he has been staying at the team hotel during games because he has been sick, and Miguel Cairo has talked about Lyle throwing up a lot. It's one thing to miss a game or 2 for illness. It is a little uncommon to miss 3 games due to being sick. So hopefully Daylen Lile is getting himself better here.
Yeah, it would be nice. Obviously, you don't want to rush a guy back who is feeling like that, but he's been really important for them. Not just the production, but like the timely hits. He's come through in some of their wins here lately with important hits late in games. And, against some of the right-handers they've been facing, he would have been in the lineup. Now, on Wednesday, they're facing a lefty and Max Fried. So I'm going to guess that they're not going to make a real effort to put him out there unless he's 100% and they feel like they like that matchup for some reason. My guess is that they'll hold him out and maybe save him if he feels well enough to pinch hit later in the game. Then the team has Thursday off and maybe we see him come back on Friday at home. But that's been a real loss, and you hate to play a man down. That's essentially what they've had to do now the last several days.
Also, the Nats have promoted Caleb Lomavita, their number 1 catching prospect, to AA-Harrisburg. He was not putting up like dominant numbers for high A Wilmington, but it's not always necessarily just about the numbers. Do you know, is Lomavita considered someone who could be like a true number 1 catcher at the major league level? Is it more like they're just trying to figure out what he is? And I guess what I'm getting at is when we talk about the uncertainty at catcher long term, right, and what next season could look like given the recent production of Riley Adams, Drew Millis, the potential for Caleb Lomavita to be promoted to the majors at some point next season. Is that significant? Do you think he could be a game changer for a catcher, or is he not viewed in that kind of regard? Is he more maybe just a guy, just an option at catcher, as opposed to like the guy, the option at catcher?
Yeah, I don't get the sense that he is viewed as like the guy, like the next big thing coming up. He was a 2nd-round pick out of Cal, very advanced. He was just drafted last year, so he's older, and clearly they're ready to move him up at a pretty rapid pace. But I don't know that he profiles both offensively and certainly defensively as that like can't miss guy. He doesn't show up on all these top prospect rankings kind of stuff. So I don't think it's that. Maybe a guy who ends up playing another position. If I remember right, he didn't even start out as a catcher. He kind of got moved to that position as he got older, but grew to like it. So I think that's one where you keep your mind open. And if he performs well enough, you say, okay, hey, this might be somebody that we need to think in those terms. But I don't think, if people out there are saying, okay, who's ultimately Keibert Ruiz's replacement one of these days behind the plate as the number one guy? There's perhaps a scenario in which Lomavita plays his way into that, but I don't think that's the organization's expectation. At least that's not the sense that I've gotten since they drafted him.
Caleb Lomavita is the Nats number 12 overall prospect per MLB Pipeline. Hit us up on X at Nats_chat. You can find us on Blue Sky at Nats Chat Podcast. You can email us natschatpodcast@gmail.com and check out our website, natschatpodcast.com, at which you can purchase a Nats Chat Podcast t-shirt. This installment of Nats Chat brought to us by Window Nation's 50% off sale. You get 50% off with an in-home consult. The sale expires on August 31st. Schedule your estimate now at 866-90-NATION or visit windownation.com. All Nationals radio highlights on Nats Chat are courtesy of 106.7 The Fan. For Mark Zuckerman, I'm Al Galdi. We thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next time on the Nats Chat Podcast.
The 1-1, a high fly ball, deep to left field. You can kiss that goodbye. Caleb Lomavita, a game-tying 2-run shot. His third home run of the season, his first in over a month, and it is 3-3.
The big kahuna with a big swing right there here on the 4th of July as the crowd gets to their feet. Mr. Celery will come back out to dance, and Lomavita took that pitch for a ride. Just a breaking ball inside, and he crushed that one to his buddies out in the bullpen.